Hello everyone, this is Barbara from Novedge. Welcome to our latest Novedge webinar episode. This week, it will be on MODO for design ideation. This webinar will focus on a design exploration process in MODO 902, and we will see concepts through different iterations using various tools and processes. Henry will examine a design study model of a house, furniture, and a doghouse. Barkitecture for Duchess, the Bassett Hound. Today's presenter, Henry Santos, is currently a CG Generalist, designer, animator, and educator with a background in architecture, CAD, BIM, ArchViz, illustration, graphic design, and audio production. He has a Bachelor's of Architecture from CalPoly, San Luis Obispo, and has completed character animation studies at animationmentor.com. Before we get going, here's an overview of what we do at Novedge. Novedge is one of the largest online stores for design software. We offer a huge assortment of software solutions that cater to virtually every designer's needs. Put us to the test and come visit our webpage at novedge.com. And I want to remind you all that we're also on Google+, Facebook, and Twitter, and we have a really fun blog. So just check it out. And coming up next week, bring your design content to the next level with 3ds Max 2016. Last but not least, today's webinar is free and is being recorded live. So if you want to watch this or any webinar episode in our collection, just head on over to Novedge's YouTube or Vimeo channel. And now I will pass screen and microphone to Henry, and he will be presenting and start his tutorial. So enjoy.
Very cool. Thank you, Barbara. So welcome everyone, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this webinar. It's kind of a continuation or a finishing up of my previous webinar, which is for architectural design ideation. And as Barbara had mentioned, my dog ate my webinar, which is kind of cool, it turns out. And so this webinar is going to be focusing on using MODO and some of the basic tools, some of the newer tools, but not necessarily the tools in 902. There are some amazing tools in 902, but this is going to be focused on a workflow that I came upon and I use for design ideation for architecture. So let's start out with this. So this site, if you can see it okay, is actually from SketchUp. I use SketchUp a lot and used it a lot. And I went to an existing site that I found in Zillow or something. But anyway, this site right here, I don't know, it keeps highlighting, but this triangle wedge right there is the site location that I wanted to build on. So I went to SketchUp, and I also tried LiDAR information from GIS. So wherever you get your site information from, you can bring it into MODO in different formats. There are certain plugins that you can purchase, and then there are certain workflows that just are built into the program. But this one I wanted to make it simple. I like having the image mapped on top, and then it's really straightforward to work on this. So this is the site here. Let me change to my topo view. So this map right here is, it was formed to match the site information. So I'm just going to go back to my polygon selection. I'm just going to show you how I did that. I'm going to move this up. And let's scale this so it's flat. I had done that previously, but I guess I must have saved it. But anyway, this is cool. So we have this file there, and there's our site down below. So we have a flat site. All right, so this webinar isn't really intended to be a tutorial of sorts. It's mainly just an overview of the process. So if you're interested in getting exact information or processes, let me know. Let us know. I'm more than happy to share a guided step-by-step that's a little bit more understandable probably than what I'm going to go over. So anyway, this is a site that I built, and added some topology to this, added a grid and made sure that they were all quads for reasons that'll be obvious in a little bit. Now while I'm in polygon mode, I'm going to change the geometry offset because right now it's constraining to the background. So any selected geometry that comes into contact with another piece of geometry that's in the background that's not selected, it's just going to conform to it or have some resistance to it. So I'm going to change this to vector, and then let's bring this down here, and if you notice, that's going to be stretching down, and there's one more setting that I have to check, double-sided, and if I bring that over, it drapes right on top of the site. Now, many different programs, especially site modeling programs or other larger programs like Maya, 3D Studio Max, Softimage, or Houdini, have very similar tools. Some are easier than others. What I found is MODO. It just makes sense to me, and so it's one of those things that I just found, and I found it to be very, very useful, and I can be very productive with it. Okay, so that is our flat site. That is a wedge from the top view. I'm going to change to my top view here. So there it is. So it's a little bit off, but you know what? I'm okay with it. We're just making a study model. Now I'm going to go back to perspective. I'm going to select this other file here, and you can see what then I have now. If I hide the site mesh, now we have this wedge of cheese. So I'm going to be building on a piece of cheese. So this is cheesy texture. No, I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But what this site now, this three-dimensional wedge, it lets me look at this site in 3 dimensions and has some depth, so I can start figuring out or thinking about cut and fill. So there it fits on the site. Now let's take a look at what I mean about the cut and fill. I'm going to go to another file here. And if we look at this site model, open up this scene file that I had open already. Turn this off so we can just focus on the site model. So there is a rough idea of how I want the site to be cut up. Now, I'm using a feature in 902 called Mesh Fusion. It used to be a plugin, but now it's part of the program. So version 902 has a whole bunch of new features, and since 901, it has incorporated that plugin called Mesh Fusion, and I love it. I think it's brilliant. The geniuses behind it had a separate program that I owned and used for a little bit, but now that it's incorporated in the MODO, I think it's fascinating, and it's very, very cool. And let's see what I mean about that, by that. So I'm going to close this mesh, and I'll open up the site mesh. Let's make that visible. So there is now a live version of this mesh. You know, it looks the same, right? But there's a little bit of difference to this in that there is a graphical representation of this site in Mesh Fusion. And when we select the different parts, it gets selected. So my selection, it's kind of hard to see But let me just select that guy, and I'm going to move it. Say I wanted that cut and fill to be a little bit different in a different location. I'm going to change my action, select my selection so that it matches the orientation of this box. And if you notice here, I'm just going to do this slowly because I have a lot of stuff going on with my file. So I kind of, and my computer is kind of, it is what it is, but it's a great little Mac. So anyway, if you notice there, we can change the location of this block, and that's cutting certain parts of the site. So if we wanted to change that, we can. If we wanted to have less of a cut in that area, you just move it, and it is essentially a three-dimensional cutter for that block of cheese. It's a cheese slicer of sorts. And then we have this driveway here. You can move, and I'm just moving these. You can, we'll see a little bit later the different ways that you can modify these cutters and these Boolean unions. If you're familiar with a Boolean process, you probably recognize that this is similar. The biggest thing is that it's live. So instead of having a one-time Boolean union or a Boolean subtraction, you can have a live Boolean function here. Let me move this out. And so this is my fill. So we can bring this out. And if we look at the model, I'm going to hide my, so I just grouped those cutters, deselect it, check out this fabulous site. It's looking fabulous. And now I'm encroaching on the city property, so I'm going to be in trouble. That's okay. I'm okay with that because I can move this guy back. All right, so these are just basic things. And there you go. And I don't see a lot of mesh fusion being used in landscapes or the built environment study model. So that's why I wanted to share this process. I do have a video on Vimeo and YouTube on my channels going through the process of creating the site, and it's just a time lapse. So I go through, mainly it was a polygonal modeling part of it, but I do want to bring this mesh fusion into the mix because it's pretty cool. Okay, I'm going to change this, how that is affecting, I can't get it. Anyway, I have learned from my previous webinar episodes that I'm not going to push this. So there it is. There's our cool site. You can modify it. And I'm going to hide this mesh fusion. And then I'm going to select this site mesh that I exported from there. So after you're done designing or roughing out your model through mesh fusion, you can export it out. And this is a high-res model, but MODO seems to be doing okay. I'm knocking on wood. I'm knocking on wood. If Duchess was here, I'd gently knock on her forehead. But I wouldn't do that. Okay, so there's our site. So let's bring in the other mesh fusion, the shell. Let's take a look at how the shell of the structure that I'm working on here can be modified as well. Okay, so I'm going to change my view so that the inactive is not visible, or actually it is very visible. You know what, I'm going to just go with it. Get rid of it anyway, make it invisible. So this is a Mesh Fusion version of this shell of a building. I'm just massing something out, getting a feel for what can work on that site, minimum height restrictions and view corridors for adjacent buildings and simple stuff like that. I don't have, since this is a make-believe structure, just wanted to see what the feasibility was to build on that site, whether we can make something look nice. It seemed like a very difficult site. I didn't put a lot of research into what it was we could do there, but it's pretty fun anyway to come up with a design. So I'm looking for my atrium here. Okay, so where's my bend effector? Oh, there it is. I had it lost in the color correction. So this this front part here that I'm hovering over, and there's like that edge that's selected, and I don't know if you can hear Duchess, but she wants it in so bad. She just wants a taste of this webinar. She can't get enough. Okay, so with a bend effector selected, we can modify the shape of that object that is forming the overall mesh fusion shape. A bend effector in MODO is a deformation tool. So it helps deform. Actually, I'm going to go into, let's see, maybe it's in model mode that it's a little bit easier to see. Yeah, there it is. It's a little bit easier to see how that's going. So the mesh fusion object is tessellated in a way that is not necessarily going to be how it is when it's exported, but it's pretty close. We can go into details about that later. I just wanted to get through the different tools. We'll see how that works. So right now, that little atrium piece right there, that's one part of this entire shell, is almost vertical. But you can change it around. Oh, you know what? Let me go to setup mode. There you go. So we have our bend effector, bending it back. So do I want it leaning back? Do I want this at minus 15 degrees? And now it's cutting into another shape that's in there, but that's kind of a cool shape, huh? So it's all about discovery and blowing it up. That's kind of fun too. So you can demo the site before it's even built. All right, so there it is. I'm gonna do 10 degrees. Let's see what that looks like. That's kind of like how we had it before. And say I have a balcony cutter here. If I don't like the way it looks, if it's too far in or out, I want more balcony space. Or if I want a hole through the building. Hey, that's kind of neat. I never did that before. I might have to change my design now. Honey, we need a wall to disappear. We need to cut a hole in the building. It's mandatory. So I've just invented the interior balcony. So that is something that you could do, and there's going to be a lot of happy accidents, which I totally rely on, because sometimes it's all about experimentation. Sometimes you know what you need, and then you could use these same tools to explore those different ideas that you have. All right, so different fascia, cutters. Let's take a look at one more cutter, and I'm going to mosey on. But this is the shell 2. So if you don't need a whole lot of room or interior space, if you need to cut back, you can get rid of that whole second floor in the back And that is just moving the cutting object, or actually, it's not even a cutter, it's a union. So I combined this one piece. Let me see here. Let me show you. See if it'll make more sense when you have that. This piece with that piece, well, actually, this is the wrong one. This is, let me go to, you know what? Just take my word for it. That is the shell. There it is. That part is combined with that part. That's a shape that I modified by pushing and pulling polygons to get that shape. Now, let me see. Hopefully I don't kill my own webinar. I can't blame Duchess for this. But if I modified this shape, oh yeah. See, so you can really do a whole bunch of different things to create unique shapes. So, so that's an outdoor racquetball court or basketball court. I don't know. But anyway, man, that looks better than how I had it in the next thing. Anyway, so therein lies the design solutions that you can explore or have an idea, explore it, and find out, no, that's not going to work. By combining different tools that are existing already in 902, which were actually in 901. But 902 has a whole bunch of new camera features that I wish I had time for. Maybe in another webinar I can do that. And it has a whole lot of really cool animation tools, which you'll see a little bit of, which I'm working with in a different project. So this is the Fusion model. So I'm going to close out of these files and open up some other ones just to keep my resources open. So again, if you have any questions, let us know, or let Barbara know, and she'll let me know. It's kind of, I wish I could just have all my files open, but I just want to make sure that I don't tax my computer. Nope. See, and there he goes.
There's Duchess.
There's Duchess. So yeah, let's have a Duchess preview. She's doing yoga. Look at that face. Yeah.
Oh.
There's another yoga dog.
Downward facing dog, I assume.
Yeah, exactly. That's downward dog, downward spiral dog, more like it. There she is sleeping. She's in deep thought. She is meditating, so that's after yoga because it's so strenuous. So
Yeah.
let's touch it. Oh, and that's how she looked after she ate my webinar. But anyway.
Guilty.
Guilty as charged. Okay,
Great. So yeah, I want to remind everyone, if you want to ask questions, ask away, and then we'll address them when we have this, downtime between transitions. So cool. Carry on.
All right. Thank you. And now let's take a look at, I'm going to change my tab. In MODO, you have different tabs. They're called layouts. But there's a layout, so I tried to just call them tabs. Because when I teach my students MODO, go to the layout. They just look at me funny. So here is our paint tab. And I'm going to select this mesh, items, and I'm going to click on my airbrush and switch over to my tablet. So what you can do here, and I don't use this a whole lot, but there are times when it comes in handy. So I have this shell, and I have it exported out. This is just a mesh that was exported out, and you see the topology is what it is. captures the edges and the profiles really well. But if you were to put this in a game engine or anything like that, it may be too many polys. So it's meant to give you an output that you can then build on top of, or do what we're going to do right now, which is kind of cool. So I have the pen tool. I'm going to make this make the pen or airbrush tool. It's going to be a black color. I'm going to reduce the brush, and hopefully, with any luck, I can get this spinning peach ball, and then you can draw right on it. So you may be thinking, why would I do this in a computer? This is so weird. Because for me anyway, sketching in 3D or creating a study model is very, very effective. But I remember, well, whenever I did one in paper, hot glue and paper, you guys know that. Sometimes if you have an idea, you still draw on the paper. So I always use Bristol board and hot glue and then a pen so I can draw on there. So I can kind of figure out where the openings are, where the windows are, and say I want this to be open, I want this to be glass, I want sliders in here, but say my design, the bathroom is going to be on the left side facing into the space, so maybe I have it here, maybe have a slider, whatever you want to draw on here. Or let me see. Okay, so this, I can't really design this without really knowing the structure, so maybe there's a post coming down here. You can change the color of your pen. Very blue, gray, structurally kind of drawing. And maybe there's a structure going up here. Or, you know what, that's crazy. I don't want that. Let me erase that. And then one thing, I don't know if this is a bug or a feature, but it doesn't remember the brush setting, so I always check to see if it's the right width before I start going to town with drawing. So maybe we have this angle here. There's that little doodad there, that little notch. Maybe that's where I would put some kind of frame. Entrance, it's right there. And then maybe there's a half door there. And then start working out. So you see where this is going. I don't want to spend. It's kind of addicting now. My sketching is not that great on here, but you can have people in there, and then you can have your Bassett Hound. Yeah, terrible drawing, but that's what she gets for eating my webinar. It looks more like a dachshund, but that's what she gets. Anyway, so you get sketches in there, and then other things that you could do is say turn that image off. So it's just an image that we have. It's a drawing right there. And I want to just turn that off. And so this is like an exploration on the structure, like how it would look. So you can have multiple sketches on this one 3D object. So if you are going to do something similar to this, using the 3D massing model as a drawing board, I'd recommend adding stuff that, being a little bit more liberal with how much space you put on there, so that you can draw in and show where, okay, I don't need that space, or there's going to be a big old honking skylight up here, with eyes on a happy face. I don't know. That's just kind of crazy. Or if you want to see how it would look like with graffiti, it's just nuts. Another cool thing that you could do too is, now I'm hoping that I saved this correctly. So this is our site. My wife is a landscape architect. Well, she's not licensed. I can't say that she's, but she also graduated from Poly landscape architecture. So if you wanted to draw here, certain things you need to make sure are in place is that the site does have a okay. It might crash because my computer is correct. Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. So we want to get an idea of where to put planters. Let's see. You can, or plantings, you can kind of just lay them out right there. Maybe there's a bench. So just really quickly in the site model, or on the site model, start drawing things in before you commit to 3D modeling, just for the sheer quickness of it, because you can see there's a little bit of weirdness there, but that's something that you'd have to address, and I would love to do a tutorial on this. Excuse me. My son went to school kind of sick. He wasn't sick, but I think I'm sick now. That just made me sick. Anyway, so there's our site. You can do some cool stuff and quick models, and you have different tools here: line tool, brush, erase. You can say that totally sucked. I'm going to get rid of this. So that is the site, and that is sketching. Now let's take a look at the last model. And this is a very different approach. This was my first approach. I'm going backwards. And what I did was I took that site, I created a site model, and then I started working out my space planning. Once I figured out roughly, let's go to that later, where the shapes are, out my shapes, just very typical polygonal modeling, just boxes, extruding faces, similar to SketchUp. I must say though, SketchUp has a very fluid workflow, and that's what keeps me coming back to it for certain things. But there are similar tools in MODO where you can do just about everything you need to do to figure out spaces. You know, I'm software agnostic, but I do love my MODO. It is awesome. So, so there's the space. Get rid of that. Oh, let me not get rid of that. Let me just hide these dudes. And let's look at a typical space planning exercise. So with this space, I have different sections blocked out for different uses. And a quick way to get to that, I'm going to conjure up my view window here, the F8 key. So instead of having to go to a different tab up above to access this preview, you can just bring it up as a floating window. And while it's there, you can, I'm going to get back to the mouse. If you right mouse click over any of those materials or any of these polygons, yes, you can access the shading information, which is the texture information. So what I did is I organized different spaces, different uses to color. So I color coordinated my spaces. So now I know that this is a bedroom. So it's a regular bedroom. If I right mouse click over that part, it's another bedroom. It's bedroom 1. So it's the first bedroom. This is a bath, this orange area. This is a master bathroom, or master bedroom, sorry. So you just keep doing this, and it's not really a feature of MODO to organize your spaces with materials, but it is such an open environment and kind of a just a cool tool that you can customize however you need. As long as you know what the basic tool functions do, then you can kind of manipulate it to how you need to. And so I have access to the den and then dining room. So nothing fancy. Other programs have much more sophisticated tools. I used to use Revit or teach kind of Revit and MicroStation, Vim, and Vectorworks. I'm really getting the Vectorworks now, but this model for being a study model helps me out a lot before I jump into a more CAD or BIM focused program. So, cool. All right, hope that made some sense. And now, let's just take one last look at what I ended up with. So I have this model, and it was all polygonal modeling. So just using polygons and extrudes, I was able to make the topology very clean, very efficient, without too much extra stuff, because I'm still just figuring out the spaces here. But there's enough there to really get a view from inside-ish. There you go. Sorry, there. You can see from inside. Anyway, we can move the camera inside there. I just don't want to push my computer. Not computer. It's so you can start working out openings to the floor levels. So that's open below. Then I have a staircase going down into the garage. So more of the design, architectural design process there. Start figuring out steps. And these are all to scale, by the way. I never showed that. But there are ways that we can make this to scale. And usually you want to set that up before you start working on it. So it's auto-saving. Those of you who use Vectorworks know that. You auto-save a lot. I have mine set to 5 minutes. It used to be 3 minutes when I used my MiniCAD. But, anyway, there's my house. So now, let's do a quick look at the render, because this is kind of cool. Honestly, I think it's pretty awesome. Not the house, but the rendering feature in MODO. I mean, the house isn't bad. I'd like it a lot more if I actually built it and was living in it. But so wherever I hover the cursor, that's where it will be. Or that doesn't make any sense. Wherever I hover the cursor, the renderer, this iterative rendering, will focus on that. And for much of what I do from a design standpoint, this is really more than I need, because I just want to get an idea of the space or how it looks. Being used to working with a live model or a three-dimensional, like a real model, a chipboard, foam core, X-Acto blade, Band-Aid model, it's kind of cool to see this in kind of a more realistic view. All right, so I'm not going to wait for that to render. Okay, so these two guys are toast. I'm going to close these files. Let's see. And then I'll open up the Barkitecture stuff. And I know I didn't coin that phrase, but I know it's around. There's books called Barkitecture. But I tried making instead of the Bauhaus, it's the Barkhouse. And I have plans for the Meow House, which is the cat house version of all my dog stuff. But they're essentially the same thing. Okay, so here in all his glory is a dog. This is a pre-made dog model that was in MODO already as part of the library. So there's a normal dog, and this is kind of roughly how Duchess looks. So she's a lowrider, chunky. She's very hefty, hefty. And right next to it is this rig that I created for creating tables. So that's another really cool thing about MODO. Yeah, you can probably tell I'm a big MODO fan. But because I can actually do stuff and I can figure it out without having to have a PhD or a doctorate in computer science, although I am starting to learn Houdini, which is really stinking cool, I still love MODO. So what happens here with this rig is I can control the height of the table and then the width of it. And because I can control the width and height of a piece of furniture, of this rig, I used it to mass out a general shape of the doghouse or the Barkitecture that I was working on. Different things you can modify. And then the cool thing here is the leg width. You can change the width of the legs. So maybe one of these days, since I also design furniture, I'll go over how we can explore making rigs. I have a rig for a table. I'm working on one for a dining table, cabinets, counters. I'm getting really into designing cabinets for kitchens. So having a rig like this would be kind of cool to mass it out and then you can model. I mean, it's nothing like, you know, having, there's a program out there called 2020 that furniture companies and cabinet designers use, and that is pretty amazing. But it's focused on that one purpose to design cabinets and kitchens. MODO could be used to create rigs like this to ease the process in creating those same things. But ultimately, you're in charge of building on it. This is just a template. It's a guide. So after you have something set up, you can put legs, you know, and then the base, the roof, back wall, side wall. So you can start building off of however you had that rig set up. Okay. So we'll take a look at this one. Okay, so I massed this out. You know, it's like, what a jump from a rectangular box to Star Trek or whatever it is. So I had this image in my head of a very geometric shaped doghouse that looks kind of like a mailbox now or a trash can. But I'm sure if Duchess lived here, she would appreciate whatever trash you can throw in there. It would just be a tasty snack. But this is kind of a platform for our cat, Phoebe, so she can jump up there and rest up there and really, really tick off the dogs. She'll probably scratch there and the dogs can't get to her. It's great. So this is a very basic polygonal model of a design that I came up with. So you don't have to use Mesh Fusion. This is really fast to do. So if I have this, I'm going to select this mesh here, this rough study, and I'm going to use a, what tool is this? I don't even know. It's a T key. It's object select. So I can select the different components of this and just quickly move them around and break things. So again, it's not idiot proof. it's not Henry proof, or let's say Duchess. I'm picking on her too much, but you do have to be careful about what you do. But it speeds up the process, so you can click on either a vertex, pull, and reshape this design to your heart's content. So as long as you work within reason, I like just pulling on these handles to control the direction in which I'm moving them. Moving the different objects. Okay, so that model you can do a whole bunch of stuff with, and close that. And now this is a smoothed out version of that model, and this is all still a polygonal model. And the difference with this and that rough model, besides the new crazy look, is, oh, actually, you know what? This one was thickened. You can take a polygon like this ground plane and add thickness to it. So minus 10, well, 10 let's say 10 millimeters. And say apply, and it thickens up the model. And you can do that with this more complex shape by adjusting the necessary points to create these general shapes, meaning this plane here. So this has a lot more detail into it, but it didn't start out that way. So you can adjust these points and get that shape how you need it, and use the very basic modeling tools. And then when you're done, you have this flat plane that you can then thicken. So that gives it kind of a better feel for how the materials are going to work, and it's fairly accurate. Well, it is accurate, but you can then export that out and do section cuts and cuts for 2D drawings or plans. Now, I'm not going into how to do that right now, but one way, since MODO isn't really a CAD program in the way we're used to CAD programs. For me, when I say CAD, I'm thinking architecture CAD, not necessarily AutoCAD, but more Vectorworks, where we used to produce 2D drawings. But you can add what's called a ground plane, turn it into a clipping plane, and bring that up to a cut height. Okay, so that'll cut it. And nothing really happens until you look at it in a preview window. And now you have your cut plane cutting across. And this is just visual. A couple ways you can modify this and export out a more accurate cut is by using a slice tool. But really what I end up doing is taking this 3D model, exporting it out to a dedicated CAD or BIM program, and then doing the slices there. Or even SketchUp. You can do you can combine it and just kind of develop a working logical pipeline. But if you wanted to see how this looks cut, you can quickly do that here. All right. So moving right along, let's go to this next Barkhouse. Let's see here. So I got oh, this guy. Okay, so let's take a look. I'm going to keep this camera view open. So this is a design process using Fusion. So we're back to Fusion again. Sorry, I kind of had a lapse there. I got excited about that funky blue design. But anyway, this is Mesh Fusion, and right now everything is live still, so this is the live model. So I'm going to rotate this dude and change the design. So we say, okay, this is absolutely where the entrance is going to be. Okay, and it's not cutting all the way through because I'm using it as a shell study, so I'm figuring out how this looks. And so we have another cutout here, and what I will do is this one. Oh, it's this guy. So you can change the look really quickly by modifying, rotating that object. So right now it's hidden, so I'm going to make it visible. So you can see what that object is doing, cutting, and how it's cutting that shape. This is a very basic shape. This was a design, kind of roughly what I had for a doghouse competition when I worked in an architecture firm in Sacramento. And I created what I called the puppy pod. And still refining that design using MODO. And hopefully I'll have it built, but it looks somewhat like this. It's really cool. And so that is a very basic thing. So I have a ground cutter that's cutting the ground, so you can change your finish floor heights or turn it into a car. So this is kind of cool. And again, this is for a doghouse, but the process would be the same or similar for an envelope for a building. Say you have a building envelope that you need to work within, or a prescribed shape that you need to work within. You can just start hammering out how it would fit in that space using Mesh Fusion. Very cool, very cool. And then what I ultimately ended up with, hide all these guys, is this fusion item. So this is what I came up with. I exported that final mesh in Mesh Fusion, and there's a way to access just the different cut sections. So I deleted anything I didn't need, and I have this this is a flat surface, and I just made it visible on two sides so that it renders out. I'm still figuring out the design, but then I could start working on slicing and dicing this guy up to see how it could be manufactured, and adding feet or hardware, and just overall how it fits. And then it's a 3D model, so I can print out a miniature of it and have a 3D print, or make finished products. I'm also designing a microphone, which I'm not going to show for time reasons. I designed a ribbon microphone, and I'm building one, and I'll be 3D printing those parts. So be on the lookout for Santos Studios microphones. They're going to be cheap. Not cheaply made, but cheap to buy. Well, I don't know, maybe cheaply made. I might not do that, though. Okay, so the next project. Oh, look, and there's a tail sticking out of it. That's just weird. Okay, so we have this guy here. Let's take a look at this. Yeah, it's 5 minutes to 12, and I told Barbara I was going to be quick. I lied. That just made me lie. So this is a design that I came up with, and it kind of looks like there's columns, but really we're in the model tab. One more cool thing about Mesh Fusion is that you can layer up the deformers. Remember how we had the bend effector bending the and deforming that atrium shape, and then we can move different objects to do that. So I put a lattice deformer, which is essentially a lattice work of controllers that will modify the shape of whatever it's applied to. So we're on frame 0 here, so I'm going to go to item selection, click this guy, and now I can change the shape. And you notice, because I have multiple objects, so I have these legs, the roof, the floor, and this original shape for the mesh fusion bound by that lattice deformer. That deformer is going to affect them all. And so it maintains the integrity of the relationship between the different pieces. Sometimes it cuts through, but overall it works pretty well. So there's our basic shape. And because we can, I animated this, not for the sake of animation, but for the sake of having kind of live morphs. You can also export out morph maps, which is a whole other monster that's awesome. Monster in the sense of an awesome monster. Anyway, so we can change the shapes. So in different frames, I animated the locations of each one of those deformer handles, those lattice deformer handles. And you can change the shape, all at the same time keeping Duchess safe inside there and not modifying, except for that one, the location of the fusion cutter. So there, it's like it doesn't cut through the roof. And I'm going to modify this some more. Let's see what happens. So you can change this design however you need to. And then the last shape, it's kind of cool. I actually scaled and moved that cutter over to kind of change the design completely. So this is a great way to come up with different designs to ideate through and have a process of ideation. That sounds very technical. But start thinking of cool stuff. That's kind of what I say. So now I'm going to scrub through this animation, and you can see how that morphs and deforms. And at any time in that deformation where you have, say, this shape on frame 15 and this shape on frame 20, I don't know if you can see the timeline too well. If you go to any one of those frames in between, you can get a tween, animation lingo here, and export that out as a mesh. And then you have that version. So technically, we have 20 versions of this doghouse. And I modified a few. So this is just kind of a way to explore your ideas and have it kind of documented so that you can access it again and modify as you go. And maybe it is a moving or a living doghouse. I don't know. That'd be kind of creepy. But this is combining different tools. And ultimately, okay. So lastly, I just wanted to show you one of the designs that I'm actually considering building. I know it's kind of plain. Might be a little boring. It's not the oozing walls of a garbage bin, but hey, it's kind of cool. It's buildable. By the way, that competition I entered, I lost because they couldn't figure out how to build it. I had it all in my head, right? But I wasn't the one responsible for building it. How I would build it would have been kind of not feasible. So, hey, you know what? I'll build it myself and have my own doghouse. So this is the final one of the iterations that I had, and so this is a combination of polygonal modeling, mesh fusion, and just adding textures to it. So that is it. 12 o'clock.
Yeah, perfect. You did. That was great timing. Great timing, Henry.
Yeah.
Wow, that was great. Whether you have a pet or not, or you're interested in Barkitecture,
Yeah.
I think you get a lot of tricks out for MODO
Mm-hmm.
users. I think not many people are aware of all the potential of MODO. So, endless design
Right.
ideas can be explored.
Right. And
Thanks
I
for
know
putting it
Andy.
out there.
Oh yeah, sure. There's so much more too. I just
I know.
touched on a little bit, and I think my previous webinar I tried to show too much, and it just kind of imploded. I blame Duchess, but really, you know what? It was getting me ready for this one,
No,
and
we had fun
Duchess.
with Duchess.
Yeah, I wish she would. Well, I kind of wish she was here, but she was she was barking like crazy out there. It was nuts.
We love the background, no bark.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so we don't have a technical question, it's more of a philosophical question. Let's see
Oh,
if
okay.
you can answer, if you have any idea. Um, the question is from Andre, and he says, do you have any tips, recommendation to help architect coworkers that are less receptive to new tools and workflows to encourage them to adapt to the new processes? Yeah, why do architects resist to change and technology? Do you have any
Oh my.
idea?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, and that's the first reason why I left architecture the first
see?
time. Many,
Yeah.
many years ago, I was getting involved in BIM. It wasn't called BIM. I'm not really keen on the name BIM, but I was using Vectorworks, and it had a lot of embedded metadata, and I was keeping an eye on other programs. But BIM was at its infancy in the late 90s, and or however BIM is now, and also visualization and sustainability. Those were the three things that I was really passionate about. Now, if I say that now, it's like required that you implement those things. But at that time, in the late 90s, there was a lot of resistance, and because mainly what I found is the fear of the bottom line, I think. Fear may be too big of a word. Concern that it would cost too much, that they would spend too much time. There was no um, reproducible systems at that time that would ensure that diving into a BIM system or using the metadata in Minicad and Vectorworks would profit anybody. Also, it was a learning curve that was not very acceptable for the type of firm that we were in. It was a small firm. We did a lot of work on wineries, and um, we had our system down. So there's no reason to explore other ways of doing what we were very successful with. And of course, I came into architecture with manual drafting. So, manual drafting, when CAD came around, yeah, cool. And then I used AutoCAD, and I'm like, whoa, that's not so cool. I didn't really understand it too well. And then Vectorworks came around, and I'm like, yeah, cool, again. So a lot of times it's, from a philosophical standpoint, it's uh, finances, but the financials of, the repercussions of having to learn things that may or may not be necessary. Um, that's a big factor in why people don't jump into new technologies. And as a freelancer and having my own company, essentially, I have to be careful about what programs I invest my time and effort in. And not to sell Modo, but I've been using Modo since version 102. It's just been cool. The programs I use are just, they have that cool factor that's just, dude, it's awesome. And it's really easy to get around, to wrap your head around the process. So one of the fears of jumping into new technology is addressed and that's usability. A lot of programs that I use have a really good UI, user interface, but the user experience, or UX, is not as good as the actual visual UI. How you get stuff done is not as designed out as Modo is. Modo has that, they have their systems that's not perfect. It's not perfect out there, but they have their systems that are built in that make it you know enjoyable. You feel it's like it's not just work. It's fun, and to convince existing leadership on changing their ideas and accepting new designs or new software and tools and new processes, you have to prove your point. And that's one thing that I have been successful in. I've actually done it. We brought in 3D Studio Max into a firm that didn't do visualization. I was a visualization manager, so we did that. We had Maxwell. We were starting to push the envelope, and then the economy hit me. But that's a whole other story. But the thing is, the leadership was not keen to the idea of these newfangled tools coming out until we proved that it was valuable. So you need to, if you're in that situation, you gotta just go after it, and don't go after it with words. Go after it with proof, with visuals, with a breakdown of your time, like how long it takes to do something, and really, as a business owner, I appreciate the concern for timeliness and cost effectiveness, but I also don't want to say don't do it. I just want to see how we can make it happen, and MODO gives you a lot of opportunities to do that, but so do other programs. I know a lot of architecture firms that just focus on SketchUp, and a lot of firms use the free stuff and then buy plugins and extra things, and then ultimately move to the pro version. But by that time, the user experience has grown on them, and they're familiar with the program, and it's like an extension of their design process. And that's one thing that you have to convince firms too is, and you need to do that by example. So show the leadership that the design experience can be beneficial, or the improvements are beneficial using these new tools. But you gotta put yourself in their shoes and say, hey, what's this new stuff? Our old stuff is working just fine. I was in a firm when we transitioned from one program to Revit. I will keep the other program. I will not mention that other program, but I like the other program. But Revit was just there was a lot more resources to jump into, and I want to change how design firms in the architectural, in the building and furniture design fields, how they view MODO, because it's competing with high-end CAD programs, CATIA, a whole bunch of other stuff. And I think it's a really cool tool for visualizing your designs, and not just visualizing the product. There's a very different process there. So find what it is that you think your firm should have. Learn as much as you can. By all means, email me, contact me. I'm more than happy to talk, obviously. Duchess will help, and we'll get those ideas figured out, because you also have to be ready for saying, hey, this was just a flight of fancy. Maybe it's not going to work. Let's look at something else, or let's not do this. Maybe what we have now is kind of cool. So you just have to be open. Anyway, enough philosophizing.
No, that was great advice, and thank you for your availability. I think your analysis is very good, and I think people should make a case for, good investment. So I think you hit it right. It's about follow the money, and if
Yeah,
it's worth it, you have to
exactly.
prove it. And yeah, great. This conversation is all worth it. I think very helpful. And I'm sorry to have to take back the screen,
Oh,
as
that's
I
totally
yeah.
fine. I
So
gotta spend time with the dogs. Hey, they're
yeah,
going nuts.
yeah.
Go
That just
for a
misses you.
walk or something. Yeah.
I want to thank everybody for attending this webinar presentation, and I want to remind everyone to visit our page at novedge.com, where you can find MODO 902, because I am here to sell MODO actually. So I hope
There
you
you
get
go.
to, you get to, come explore it and, check it out on our Novedge website. And we do have the best prices out there. And for information on the latest specials and new releases, join the Novedge network on Facebook, Google Plus, and Twitter. Sorry. And so next week we'll have a webinar on 3ds Max 2016. Connect with us on Facebook, Google Plus, or Twitter. And to watch today's webinar or previous ones, check out our Novedge YouTube and Vimeo channels. Our webinar playlist has webinars for every software taste, including Henry's previous webinar with MODO and for design ideation. Thanks again for joining us and have a wonderful day. Thank you, Henry, and thank you,
Oh, thank
Duchess.
you. Thanks, everyone. Yes.
Bye-bye.
Duchess says, roof. Uh,
Likewise. Bye-bye, everyone.